Hello and welcome to this episode of the Contractions series. Today we're looking at the contraction eude, and that can actually represent you had or you would. So we'll spend a moment as well thinking about how you can decide which full form this contraction refers to. So today's focus is on pronunciation. We'll have 2 slides of example sentences, and where they come up, we'll look at other connected speech features as well. So our full form, first of all, you had. So we've got that y at the beginning and oo, you. Then that nice h, a short a and a d for had, you had. So that's 2 syllables, 1 each across the 2 words. However, when we contract to eude, as always, we need to lose something. So we lose our h and our a, and we're left with eude. And what you can see there is we've gone down to 1 syllable, eude, eude. So thinking about eude representing you had, remember eude is our pronunciation focus, but here we're thinking about the full form being had. So you had better be quiet is the meaning here. So thinking about pronunciation first, repeat after me, nice and loud. You'd better be quiet. Again, you'd better be quiet. Now, thinking about the fact that it could be you had or you would when you encounter eude, how do you know? How do you know that this is you had and not you would? Well, let me read the sentence with the other option. You would better be quiet. How does it sound? Hopefully it feels a little bit off for you hearing me say you would better, because that's not a great sentence in English. Grammatically, it doesn't really hold meaning. You had better be quiet, you had better do something is a phrase that we would use if we're giving some strong advice to somebody. You'd better hand in your homework on time. You'd better be a good child so that Santa brings you a present. Whatever it might be, we're giving strong advice. So if you encounter this contraction eude and you're not sure whether it's you had or you would, the best thing to do is to kind of either in your head or out loud say both options in full, and one of them should just feel like a more natural grammatical construction based on your previous knowledge of the language. One of them will feel more natural, I think. So a second example then, repeat after me. You'd been there before, right? Again, you'd been there before, right? So hopefully you caught that little inflection at the end, because I'm sort of asking a question. I'm not telling them, I'm just double checking. Have I got this right? Have I understood? And there's something really fun about this one as well. Potentially you're going to hear people using a weaker form of been, which is been. You'd been there before. Definitely I use this weak form in my own speech constantly without even noticing it. It's a very, very natural element of spoken English. So been, if you hear it in a sentence, it's probably not necessarily referring to a litter bin. It's probably a weak form of been. So that's one to listen out for. And just before we go on to our next examples, a little reminder that if you haven't already, it's worth subscribing because this playlist is going to get very large. So on to you would then. So you is the same, y, and then oo. Would, we've got our w, d, would. However, when we contract, we're losing the w and the and we're left with eude. Same as before, nothing changed from the previous examples, eude. So some examples then. Remember, we're focused on this eude. Repeat after me nice and loud. He asked if you'd help. He asked if you'd help. Now we've got something fun going on here. Because of the E and the R being next to each other, this little Y pops in. He asked. He asked. And also, it's worth noting the word ask, because it ends in that k, the ed is actually pronounced as a t, so it's asked. You will sometimes hear people voicing that D a little bit. I think I sometimes do it without really paying attention. I'm sure I'm not the only person, but generally it comes out as a kt. He asked. And because of that, we get some linking. Asked if. He asked if you'd help. Another example then. Remember, we're focusing on this eude. You'd benefit from her input. Again, repeat after me. You'd benefit from her input. Now, another thing that's worth noticing, thinking about connected speech, is this R. Because of where I'm from, I don't tend to pronounce that R strongly at the end of a word like her. For me, her ends in that vowel. Depending on where a person's from, they may well pronounce that R more strongly. For someone like myself who doesn't normally pronounce it, what happens if there's a vowel at the beginning of the next word, the R can activate, so it becomes a linking R. So here, hopefully you can hear that I am sort of pronouncing it a little bit, her input. So it kind of sounds like I'm saying the word rinput, which isn't a word, because this R is activating and it's attaching itself to the beginning of input. So what I'm saying is her input, but in connected speech, her input. And this can really confuse people. If you're not familiar with the concept of this linking R, it can really confuse the boundaries between words. And so you might think you've heard a different word. So if you haven't come across this before, it's definitely worth knowing about. It can really help with your listening skills. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, go ahead and click like, and don't forget to leave me a comment if you've got either a question about this contraction or any of the other contractions in this series. I'm more than happy to help. Thanks for watching and have a lovely day.